socialstudiesgames.us, Unit 6, Video 6, as always. It's based on the AP guidelines. We got a challenging one here for you today. That's what we talked about yesterday, the Populist Party platform. That's simple compared to what we're doing. Defining referendums, recalls, that's simple. Today we're going to debate gold and silver. We're not going to debate it. You should be able to describe the debate. You're going to be able to describe monetary policy. You got to hang with me. This is a very challenging topic. Make sure your brain's on. Make sure that you're focused. But let me tell you, if it confuses you, don't worry. If it's too complex, don't worry. Just keep thinking about it. And through the video, I'm going to keep chipping away, and you're going to end up with a general idea. Don't give up. At first, it won't make any sense, and then it still won't make any sense. But as I go through example after example, one of them will stick, and you'll kind of get an idea of how money and the money supply works and how its value goes up, and sometimes the value of money goes down. It's hard for us to understand because when you have a $10 bill, it's worth $10. It's not worth $5. It's not worth $20. It's worth $10. But that's not true. Oh my God, my head's going to explode. A $10 bill is not worth $10. That's right. You got to hang in there. And if I got to record this video over to make it better, then I'll do that. But just hang in and try to do your best to pay attention. You're not going to completely figure it all out. But if you get a kind of an idea and you start warming in the direction of it, then that's good enough. So let's go back in time. Let's talk about the Panic of 1893. Remember J.P. Morgan? Everybody was building railroads because that was a way to make money. Unfortunately, they built too many railroads. And as the supply of anything goes up, its value goes down. It drops out. And what happened was the whole economy based around railroads crashes, and with that, it brings down the entire economy. As the railroads shut down, a lot of the money that was used to pay for the railroads and a lot of the money that was borrowed to invest in railroads come from banks. And when the railroad goes down, the railroad company can no longer pay back its loans. And this guy who borrowed money, he borrowed money to buy shares of the railroad. And when it goes down, well, he can no longer pay back his money. So basically, the bank shuts down. And so what you have was a railroad problem that then turns into a bank problem. And when the banks no longer have money, then the rest of the country goes with it. This is called the Panic of 1893. The money supply. If you suck the money out of the economy, you would know this. Imagine that you don't have any money. Imagine that your parents' bank account is empty. Imagine no one has any money. Okay, well, maybe we'll make it through today. But what about tomorrow? What about next week? Can you live a month without money? Now, maybe it's not everyone. Just imagine 1/3 of America. 1/3 of the population doesn't have money. What will happen to that 1/3 of the population after a month, after 2 months? Bad things, right? Now imagine that this is a time where the government doesn't really do anything. They don't really help you out during the hard times. So you just are going to have to starve, and you're not going to pay rent. It's really bad. Panic of 1893, really bad. Fun story about J.P. Morgan here. Before, he'll end up buying all of these railroads and creating a monopoly after the fact. But one of his first business ventures was during the Civil War. He bought a bunch of guns for $7 a piece. And then he turned around and went to the military on the battlefield and sold them to them for $22 a piece, which is basically what we would call arbitrage. But that's not the fun part of the story. The fun part of the story is that the guns malfunction. That's not actually fun. It's terrible. It's ruthless. This is cutthroat business. Sells the guns. They malfunction. They blow off soldiers' hands. When you cock back, they're blowing up. They're blowing the guy's hands off. So that was J.P. Morgan. That was his first business venture. Turned $7 guns into $22. He didn't turn them in. He just raised the price. He went to the battlefield, took it directly to the consumer, rejected the price. They malfunctioned. So this Panic of 1893 happens, and a lot of Americans are struggling. Here's a tear. He's crying. It's so bad. That's what happens. Panics are a lot like recessions or depressions. And you know it's bad when people march on Washington. You're saying, well, dude, everybody marches on Washington. There's a protest on Washington every week. It's a lot different now, dude, when you have cars and airplanes. These people some of them literally had to walk to Washington, D.C. It wasn't easy to get the masses, especially the poor, unemployed masses, to a protest. This is called Jacob Coxey's Army. populist protests during Panic of 1893, and they're basically begging the government, you need to create jobs. We're not asking you for a handout. We need some sort of government-based public works. Pay us to build some roads, or pay us to work in the park. Give us a job. Somehow give us something. Help us, help us, help us, government. And the government doesn't do anything. All right, now we're going to get into, that's the easy part of the lesson. Now we're going to get into the part where we talk about monetary policy. And a lot of this is happening with the backdrop of the Panic of 1893. The economy is struggling. People are struggling. They want the government to do something. The government needs to help us out. And one of the things that the government can do is change the monetary policy. In 1900, if you were to give your money to the bank, you could actually buy gold because all of the money was simply a receipt. Paper money was simply a receipt for gold. That's the way it used to work. Did I spell receipt right? I hope that I spelled receipt right because I can't change that now. Basically, this thing is a receipt for your gold. You put your gold in, they give you a receipt that basically says, bring this piece of paper back and I will give you your gold back. That's how the original banks worked, and that's what paper money is. You could exchange your gold for money. Every dollar that was printed had to be backed by gold. The government could not make money unless it had the gold in its vaults. And that maintained a steady, constant value of the dollar bill. It was all based on a real, rare, valuable metal. Money was not made up. It was not just some piece of paper. These Federal Reserve notes, well, this is before the Federal Reserve, they were based on gold. They were a representation. They were a receipt for the gold. And if you wanted, you could put your money in the bank and get the gold. But for the most part, you would use the money because it's much easier to go from store to store and to pay for things with money. If you take a bar of gold, what are you going to do? Chip off a little piece and say, all right, I want a cheeseburger. So what is that? Is that about a gram of gold? All right, let me just chisel off a little piece of gold. And it's much easier to use the money. Today, we don't have that. Today, we no longer have the gold standard. This was called the gold standard, and all the money in circulation was based on how much gold we had in the banks. Today, the money is just money. It's just paper. It is not a representation of gold. And then you say, well, then it's not worth anything. Oh my God, the world's going to end. Well, not really. So, and this is a long story, and we'll talk more about this in social studies later on, but your money is worth something because the government says it is. And you're probably rolling your eyes right now saying, are you crazy? Just because the government says money is money doesn't mean it's money. Well, yeah, it is. This is called a fiat currency, and that comes from the translation of just let it become. So just let it be. It's money because it's money. And this is the way it is around the world. No one today is on a gold standard. No one has dollar bills that are backed up by a gold currency. You can't turn your money into gold through the government. It's all money just because it's money. And that might scare you a little bit, and it should, but one of the things that you can say at least is we have a stable government compared to any other country. And when we have a stable government, if they say the money is worth something, then dagnammit, the money is worth something. That is the way it goes. This is a fiat currency. That's today. Today we do not have a gold standard. And the money is the money, and the government can print money whenever they want, and the government can stop printing money whenever they want. They don't need a specific amount of gold bars in their vaults. If they feel like we need more money, then they can print it. And if they feel like, we got too much money, then they are allowed to stop printing it because they say so. It's been like this for a while. We have just pretty much become accustomed to it. That is today. The time period that we are studying, it is much different. They are on the gold standard. We'll get back to that in a second. Let's continue with printing money and how money works, how the economy works. You take your money, you spend it at the store, they give you a PlayStation 4. That is awesome. The store or the shop then takes that money to buy more workers because they have to buy and build more PlayStation 4s. So again, let's rewind that. You spend your money at the store. They sell you a PlayStation 4. They use some of their money and it goes to the factory. The factory hires more workers. Why did they hire more workers? Because they've got to build more PlayStation 4s and they sell them to the store. And then, hey, guess what? He's a worker. And so he has money and he's going to spend his money. He's going to buy a PlayStation 4. Guess what? They're going to use some of that money to buy more PlayStation 4s. And when they buy more PlayStation 4s, we end up with more workers. And if we have more workers, and you see how this works? You see how it all started with you buying it, then that guy bought it, and we've actually created jobs. You, give him some teeth, created jobs. Good job, dude, by spending money. So the more spending will result eventually in more workers. And more workers means even more spending. Money being spent creates workers, and that guy is going to spend money, and then that's going to create more workers, and he's going to spend money, and when he spends money, it creates even more workers, and then that guy spends money. That's how it works. And if we really want to break it down to a root, if we want to find one source, we could say that more dollar bills is going to be more spending, and more spending will mean more workers. And if we have more workers, they have even more spending. So you know what? We just need more money. This goes back to the last video with the populace saying unlimited coinage of silver dollars. We need more free silver is one of the terms that was used by the Silverites and the populace during this time. Because more money means more spending, means more workers. Now, cool, that is great. And you're sitting there in front of your computer screen thinking, all right, well, this is 2000, whatever year that you're sitting there. And if we just put more money in the economy, more spending, there'll be more jobs, and everything will work out. So the government can do this now, right? Because the government doesn't have a gold standard. The government can just print money whenever they want. So why not just print money whenever they want? They kind of do. And they have been doing this actually for the last 10 years. So that's good. Or is it not good? We're going to have some issues. Government prints money, creates more workers. Everyone agrees there. If there's more money, there's more spending, there's more workers. This sounds awesome. I should have picked a word that required less spelling. Okay, let's rewind. Let's talk about some basic economic principles. Demand goes up, price. We've talked about those before. But what I want to focus on is a concrete law of economics, and that is supply. When supply of anything, supply of gold, the supply of silly bands, the supply of Yeezys, the supply of cheeseburgers, the supply of anything, the supply of massages, the supply of yoga instructors. When the supply is down, the price of that good or service goes up. If there is only one place where you can learn yoga, you're probably going to have to pay more. If there's a lot of places where you can learn yoga, then they're going to compete. If there's a lot of places that teach yoga, then they're going to compete and they're going to drive the price down, and you're going to learn how to meditate and you're going to learn how to stretch your body and contort your body for a low, low price. But if there's only one in town, price is up. If there's only one guy teaching you MMA and how to do a rear naked choke or whatever that is, if there's only one guy showing you how to knock people out, he's probably going to charge you more. But if there is a guy on every corner of the street showing you how you can knock people out and make them submit and tap out, the price will go down. That might not resonate with you. How about I say this? When there is not very much gold, when gold is rare, when gold chains and bling are rare, guess what? It costs a lot. Now, if there was a lot of gold chains, if there was a lot of bling, then it's not very valuable at all, is it? Fake diamonds. Real diamonds, cubic zirconium. Real gold, fake metal painted yellow. Price is low. Supply and demand. And folks, this is everything. Everything. You know it, you live by it. If there are a low supply of doctors, then doctors get paid more. And if there are a high supply, a lot of people that can flip cheeseburgers, because I can flip a cheeseburger, you can flip a cheeseburger. Your 5-year-old sister is probably smart enough to flip a cheeseburger. Now, I don't say this to denigrate fast food workers. I was a fast food worker. I worked at McDonald's and I worked in dining halls. I know what the job requires, and it's not a lot of skill. I'm sorry if you're a fast food worker. And if you're a fast food worker, you can probably say, yeah, you're right. It's not that difficult. If it's not that difficult, then you have a high supply of those workers. If there's a high supply of those workers, or that means the boss can choose from a bunch of different people. So you got a bunch of people competing for that one job of flipping burgers. Typically, they will pay the person that agrees to the lowest price. That's why fast food workers don't get paid much. You have a high supply of people that can flip burgers. And so the fast food joint says, all right, whoever of you, 100 people are willing to work for $7, I will hire you. And of course, you go through those 100 people, some people are going to say, not me, man. I ain't working for no $7. And I would say, I'm not working for $7. And then Bill's like, I'm not working for $7. And then Steve's like, well, I need this job, so I'll take it. That's what happens when you have a high supply. Now, if you have a low supply of doctors and your local town needs a doctor, or there needs to be a doctor, or you are really sick and you have no choice, low supply, then you got to pay that guy whatever he asks for. He's going to get a high price to fix your broken leg. Hopefully that makes sense. Big rule is money. This all still applies with money. If we have a lot of money in circulation, its actual value goes down, and vice versa. Give you an example. We'll talk about economy 1, and we'll call this the nation of inflation. Let's give it a better name. We're going to call this nation Toad. Toad has a lot of money in the economy. There's a lot of money. And then in the nation of Frog, there is actually deflation, meaning we don't have a lot of money in the economy. And so in one country, there's a lot of paper money floating around. And in this country, there's not a lot of paper money. What happens? So over here, the supply of money is up. So the actual value of this money, the value or the price will go down. And I'm going to show you specifically how this works a little bit later. But just know, you might have heard someone say, I can't buy what I used to, or the dollar ain't worth what it used to be, or man, I can't really afford to buy things. That is an example of too much money in the economy of Toad. In deflation, where there isn't very much money in circulation, the supply is low. And so the actual value, this is worth a lot. It's worth more than it appears to be because it is now rare. There is not much of it. Just like gold, it is rare. And so the price has gone up. When there is too much of something, its value goes down. So over here in this economy, it favors regular people because I have money, I can spend the money, and I can buy things, and that's going to create jobs, and that's pretty cool. It's easier access, but it's not worthless. It's worth less, but that's what worthless means. It's worth less because there is more of it, but it still favors you because you have money and you can purchase things. Now that can be argued whether it favors everyday people, but the idea in economy is at least there's money out there. It might not be worth very much, but you have money. You can spend the money at the store. They're going to make goods. They're going to provide services. And ultimately that creates jobs. And with those jobs, there's more people spending money. And with more people spending money, more goods are required, which will create more jobs, which requires or leads to more spending. Over in this economy, it favors more of the wealthy because there is limited access to money. It is more valuable, which is great, like gold or diamonds, but there is limited access to the money. There is less of this going on. We don't have spending over here, and we don't create a bunch of jobs because we do not have spending. We do not have money. This is actually bad. Now, it's not terrible if managed correctly, but in the extreme deflated version, this is what caused the Great Depression. This, not the banks, actually the Federal Reserve Bank, yes. But it wasn't the banks. It wasn't the stock market. It was not the wealthy elite. It was not railroads. It was not the rich. The Great Depression was caused by deflation. There wasn't enough money in the economy during a very pivotal moment. And when there isn't money in the economy, you over here, oh, let's give him a sad face, because you can't spend anything. And if you can't spend, then you don't get the jobs. And if you don't get jobs, then we get even less money. And it goes down, down. And this is caused by deflation. And they're like, well, then we want it. No, you don't want this either. This is too much money. This is too little money. You don't want either of these. You want to find a comfortable medium in between. Again, you don't want deflation and you don't want inflation. You need to find a balance, a happy medium of not too much money and not too little money. The way the government works with their money supply today, and even then, it still regulated the money supply with gold and silver, is you don't just print money like a mad person. You don't just slam on the gas pedal and you don't just slam on the brake. And this is a lot like driving a car. You can't just hammer away on the gas. You can't just hammer away on the brake. If you've driven anywhere, you're going to need to use both of these pedals at different times. Hyperinflation or too much deflation is very, very bad. And a lot of times the big problems that we get into are caused by too much gas or too much brake. You can get on the gas. You can get on the brake. Inflation is okay. Hyper's bad. Deflation is okay. Too much is bad. Again, it's like this is too hot. This is too cold, I guess. I can't really tell. This one's just right. It's Goldilocks. Again, gas pedal and brake. This is how monetary policy works. Too much throttle is like printing too much money, and you're going to wreck. You're going to drive the economy into the ditch. You cannot just print money, print money, print money. It's going to cause inflation, and the value of the money will eventually become worthless, and the economy is destroyed. You cannot just print money. You cannot hammer at the gas. But you also cannot slam on the brake, because too little throttle is too little money, and you get deflation. And remember, that's what caused the Great Depression. There wasn't any money in the economy. You literally had no money. You couldn't spend any money, and that means if you're not spending at the store's not hiring workers, and if they're not hiring workers, then those guys aren't spending, and then it just goes down and down and down. And again, you can't go all in with money, because if you just keep printing and printing and printing, eventually it becomes worthless. Because remember, supply goes up, the price goes down. Gold is rare. Silver is not as rare, but it's not like you can get silver everywhere you want. But if we're comparing, you've got rare, less rare. If we're trying to look at this in a binary perspective, or from the perspective of opposites, black and white, rare, not rare. Gold, the supply is low, the value is high. Again, supply low. And you know that if you own any gold, you know it's valuable still today. There's not a lot of gold in circulation. It is very valuable. The only problem with gold is there's not a lot of it, and so you can't buy a lot of things with it. That's the downfall of gold. Now, silver, I feel like I need to write silver on here. The supply is medium. It's not high by any means. And so the value is medium, we'll say. I mean, if you want to say the supply is high, that's fine if that helps you out. So the value is low. If you need a little more extreme of an example to understand what we're hammering away at here. The problem with gold, it seems like it's great because it's got a good value and it buys more. But the problem is, like you and I don't own any gold. I do not own any, even on my ring finger, I don't even have silver. I don't even think you're supposed to have silver rings anyway, but I have, maybe it's titanium. I don't even know what this metal is. So I don't have gold. I don't own any gold. And that's not really that different. A lot of Americans do not have gold. And you may have some gold, but you don't have a lot of it. Yes, it's valuable and it buys things, but it's just not available to everyone. And we need people to have something. We need people to have money so they can purchase goods. And if people have money to purchase goods, it sends the economy up. So silver, though, doesn't buy as much. It's not as valuable, but it's available to more people. These coins are available to people. They use the coins. They buy goods. These gold coins, you probably don't have any gold coins, but you likely have silver coins. And with these coins, you buy goods. And when you buy goods, they produce more goods. They hire more workers, and with more workers, then they have good money, and then they spend it, and it goes up and up and up and up. And that is good, as long as we do not have too much silver. All right, remember 1900. You give your money, you get your gold. Gold is backed, or money is backed by gold. The dollars are backed by gold. The government can only make money based on how much gold it has. That is not like today. Today, the government can print whatever money it wants. But back then, there were rules, there were regulations. They had to stick to it. There was nothing they could do. So then someone says, well, we need to rewrite those rules because we need more money, right? If you have more money in the economy, then people will spend and it'll help the country out, especially because we're talking about the panic that was going on. And a lot of people thought that, especially the populace, the way to get out of the panic was to print more money. Well, the government can't just print more money during this time because money is backed by gold. You only can have the amount of money that is equal to the amount of gold. Dims the rules. So we say, well, why don't we change the rules? What if we change it to silver? Like, what? Silver? What if we create silver as a backing for money as well? Well, what does that mean? Well, here's the thing. We could add more silver. We have more silver than gold, but we're not just doing only silver, actually. We are doing silver and gold. Not only silver. We're doing silver and. That's not how you spell and. I have temporary dyslexia. But anyway, real quickly though, obviously we have more supply of silver than gold. And as the supply of silver, that means, oh, well, that's not good. The price is down. But the good news is we have more silver, and more silver means more dollars. And more dollars means more spending, and the economy is going to go up. So they say, look, instead of using this gold per dollar, instead of gold to dollar, let's do silver to dollar. Silver to dollar. There's more silver, and with more silver, we have more dollars. The economy's going to go. Well, it's actually even crazy in that because it's not just silver to gold. It's gold to dollars too. So we can make dollars for every piece of silver. We can make dollars for every piece of gold. That will send the supply up. Well, that's good because we can spend more, but here's a problem. That means the price or the actual value of these dollars goes down. That's the downside. Remember, the law of supply and demand always applies. You print more money, that money actually goes down. And you know it and I know it. Stop saying, well, no way. Isn't it? Look, it's a rule. You believe in supply. When supply goes up, price goes down. You apply that to everything. You have to apply it to money as well. Silver will stimulate the economy. It will help in the panic. If we now use silver also as a backing for dollars, we can print more dollars. And with more dollars in the economy, we can buy more goods. I can buy stuff. As I buy more stuff, they hire more workers, and then more workers are spending. And as they spend, it goes up and up and up. The more I spend, the more workers, the more they spend, and the economy goes up, and people start doing better, and maybe eventually we will end the panic. So the answer from the populace is that here's what we need to do. We need to increase the money supply, and we'll do that by what they call is free silver, or the unlimited coinage of silver, introducing it as a backing for money. Today, we can just print money whenever we want it. That wasn't the rules then. Then they wanted to change the rules from gold to really gold and silver. Remember, supply goes up, price goes down. Let's go over this. Some of the problems with this. So the bank gives money to you. You got $300, gold based on silver. Supply goes down, price goes up. Now, explain a little tricky situation. Okay, remember, supply goes down, supply goes up, price goes down. All right, so hopefully you got kind of an idea. Now I'm going to try to wreck whatever you know already. Just hang in there. Let's imagine a bank loans you money, $300. And that's when gold is the backing for money. Supply is low, price is high. Now what happens if we all of a sudden say, you know what though? Dollars are also backed by silver. And when we do that, we increase. Basically, we're printing money and we're increasing the supply of money, lowering the price. And actually what happens is that $300 is actually now worth $200. You're probably, what, wait, $300 is $300. It doesn't become $200. Well, it does. $300 really becomes $200 when you increase the money supply. And how they were proposing to increase the money supply was, we're going to use gold. And for every bar of gold, we will print money. And also for every piece of silver, we will print money. And so we have now increased the money supply, and the actual price is lower. And that $300 is actually only $200. I know that is hard to imagine. We'll get to that in a second. Now imagine I eventually pay that money back. After a couple years, I pay that back. Does anyone see a problem here? You may not get this problem yet, but I borrowed $300 when gold was the only backing. Then we created inflation. Then I pay it back, and I'm really only paying back $200. I know it sounds crazy. It's weird. Slowly think about this. So again, if we go from gold to silver and gold, we are basically printing money. We are creating $300. It's still $300. 1, 2, 3. It's still $300. The actual value on the piece of paper still says 100. It does not change. $100 is still $100, even when we print more money. And right now, if you had $100 in your pocket 10 years ago and you have a $100 bill in your pocket today, it's still a $100 bill. It technically has not changed. And we have printed more money at a higher rate. But the buying power changes. The $100 doesn't change. This stays the same. What happens is the market adjusts. The country adjusts. You can't change the face value of the dollar, but we know there are more dollars. So we know the price is going down on those. We know the value is going down because of the law of supply and demand, and the businesses know this. Everyone is aware of this phenomenon, but we can't change these dollars. So the change happens in another form. The buying power changes. What we usually see is the price of goods and services, whether it's the massage or it's going to the doctor or it's buying a PlayStation. What happens is goods and services go up. The price of those items go up to make up for the difference. The guy that sells you pizzas, I probably should just draw on a pizza, but who knows, realizes that the money supply is going up and the value of that money is going down. He knows that although he's got a $10 bill in his pocket, it's not really worth $10, although it says it's worth $10. So what he does is yesterday or a year ago, he charged you $9 for a large pizza. Well, when we print more money, he decides I need to start charging $10. Now, there's a lot of different, it's very complex. There's much more details of things connected to who he's buying and who he's buying goods from and where this whole process starts. Because he's buying pepperonis and he's buying dough from somebody and he's paying an employee. And there's a whole chain of events that happen. And it's very complicated. The simplest way just to look at it is to accept it and know that when supply of money goes up, the price of it goes down, although we know that the actual face value doesn't change. So what has to change, because we can't change this, is goods and services. The things that you buy, the value of it goes up. So I used to be able to buy a pizza for $9. Now I can't get that anymore. I got to spend $10. And you realize your money does not buy what it used to. And it does not buy the same because its value has gone down. The buying power changes. It still says $300. But when we change the supply, its actual price or value goes down. This is inflation. This is pretty natural. This happens. That pair of shoes that you desire, it was $300. Now it's $400. The shoe is still the same. They did not add a new lace. They did not add a new strap. That strap was there last time when it was $300. The shoe has not changed one bit. But what has changed is the supply of money. It has gone up. So an example would be 200 or 150 years ago, they said, you know what, instead of just gold backing dollars, gold and silver will back the dollars. So now we can have more dollars in the economy, and more dollars in the economy increases the supply. That means its actual value goes down. You can't rewrite this to say, no, this is only actually worth $10. Let me change that 20 to a 10. You can't do that. What happens is the market adjusts, and the market realizes that inflation is happening, and so the market raises the prices of goods. Same $300 shoe. Nothing has changed with the shoe. They've raised the price because they are compensating for the change in the value of the money. Hopefully some of this is starting to stick. And you have seen this in your life. You may remember 5-10 years ago when you went and you would buy a Coca-Cola at the gas station. And maybe you used to be able to get it for 99 cents. Now when you go get a Coca-Cola, it costs $1.15 or any other different thing. There are many different ways that businesses and the market adjust to inflation. This is very natural. For a time, most of the time in my life when I was a kid, sodas were 50 cents. Sometimes you could get them for cheaper, like 35 cents. But those days are gone. If I buy a can of soda, it's usually 80 cents now. The Coke is still the Coke. It is the same. It has not changed. It's just like this is the same pair of shoes. What has changed is the supply of money has gone up and the price has gone down on the money. But we can't change the money. You can't change a dollar. So what to do to compensate for that is it turns the prices of goods have to go up, because I used to get a Coke for 50 cents. My money's not worth as much anymore. So I got to spend more. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Now you're probably saying, all right, this is dumb. Why would you just print a bunch of money if it's just going to kill the price? Well, the first thing we've already talked about, when you put more money in the economy, people can spend it and it creates jobs. It kind of helps. It definitely helps in times of disaster. And it's not that terrible of a thing as long as you don't print too much money. If you keep it under control, you're going to be fine. But it does sound pretty stupid that why would you print too much money if it's just going to devalue it? Why would the government ruin money? That sounds really stupid. Or not even just ruin it. Why would they just devalue the money? It doesn't make any sense. Now, like I said before, for some people, devalue money is better than no money. That's actually a lot better than nothing at all. So you might as well print something because we're trying to stimulate the economy. This guy, he doesn't care if a dollar's not worth what a dollar used to be. Oh, a dollar's only worth 50 cents. I've got none of them. So I don't care if lowering the value of the dollar means I'll get some dollars, then I'm all about it. And that was really what was happening during the Panic of 1893. A lot of the country was in desperation mode. And they needed money in the economy. They needed some sort of stimulation because anything was better than nothing. So that's an example of why supply going up and its value going down ain't so bad. Here's another reason. The government has to pay for wars. This one is an issue in modern day. Maybe not so much during the Panic of 1893, but this is another big issue topic that is very important. The government, war is not free. Not only do they pay for soldiers, but they got to pay for this helmet. And look, you don't get helmets for free. They got to buy helmets from the helmet company. They got to buy this gun from whoever makes the guns, Smith & Wesson, I don't know, whoever they make the guns. Governments don't make guns. Governments don't make helmets. Governments don't make uniforms. And even if they do, because sometimes the government says, well, we're in this big war, so we've got to start making war supplies, so we're going to make our helmets, and we're going to make our guns, and we're going to make our uniforms. All right, cool. So the government's going to make it. All right, we don't have to pay any. Well, yeah, you do. So if the government is going to make it, they have to have workers that make this uniform. They have to make, so they're paying money there. And then also the fabric that went into this, they had to buy it from a cotton farmer. The parts that went into the gun, they have to buy that from the individual manufacturers of those parts. It costs a lot of money. A tank. Do you know how much money a tank costs? War is very expensive. It costs the government a lot of money. And it's not a thing that you really want to be cheap about. If you are cheap, then you run the risk of losing the war. So, look, if you want to be cheap when it comes to, like, look, dudes, I don't eat out. I save my money at home. I'm not wasting my money on going to fancy dinners. You guys can blow $30 every night at Chipotle. I'm not doing that. I'm going to sit at home and eat bologna sandwiches. That's cool. That's a place where you can be cheap. But war is not necessarily the thing you want to be cheap. Oh, you know what? We'll be cheap. Let's just, we'll only give the guy a couple of bullets. We'll save. You don't need 20 bullets. You just need 5, and then he dies. Or, well, you know what? You don't need like a metal helmet. Can't we just make that out of plastic, and then he takes a bullet and his brain blows up? They don't want to do that. You want to spend the money. So where does the money come from? The government can tax us. They can raise taxes. And when they do that, it's good because they get the money from you and they spend it on the war. That's awesome. That's one way you could fund the war so you can win it. The problem is when a politician or the government raises taxes, then it's very unlikely that we are going to vote for them again to go to the House of Representatives. Even during times of war, folks. Even during times of war, if the government raises, because that's where we are right now. We've been in a war for the last 20 years. And if the government raises taxes, you are very unlikely to vote for these politicians. You don't want to vote for those guys. You're not going, you raised my taxes. Yeah, but it was for the war. I don't care. Don't raise my taxes. Find another way to pay for it. And guess what? They do find another way to pay for it. And this one's much worse. And this is much more nefarious and odious. So inflation, folks, is a hidden tax. You don't realize this. Most Americans don't realize this. And this is how we fund a lot of the wars. Because our government does not have the guts to raise taxes because they're afraid, I'll lose my job and I'll no longer be a representative and I won't have power and I'll just have to go home and cry. He doesn't want to do that. And it's right. If you raise taxes, we probably will not reelect you. What they can do, those tricksters, is print more money. And they print the money, and then they spend the money on the war. They can't do that. Yes, they can do that. And yes, they do that. It's much easier than this because sometimes you have to go to your constituents. You've got to go to your people and say, hey, I want you to vote for me so I can raise taxes, or I want you to support me raising taxes to vote. People will say no. Maybe you get 40% of the country to agree with that, but most people will not. Over here, you don't have to ask anybody. The government simply prints the money and then spends the money, and you think, well, that's cool, no big deal. Just print the money, spend the money, start the war. Wrong. What happens when they print the money? They print the money, the supply goes up. And what happens to the value of the money? It actually goes down. And so over here, in this case, at least it's honest. At least the government is just stealing from you. In this situation, what the government is doing, they don't take your money. They just make your money worth less. It's still in your bank account. They don't take the money from you. Right here, they honestly just take it from you. Over in this situation, what they do is they print a bunch of money, they spend a bunch of money, and then you realize, oh wait, that $100 I have in the bank, it's really only about $75 now because the government printed a bunch of money, of which I never agreed to. At least over here, you can punish your representative. You can vote them out. Over here, you never know that they do it, and there's no way of you ever stopping it. Hidden tax. That is probably the darkest side of today's lesson, which happens with inflation. Government takes your money, government devalues your money. They get their money one way or the other, and you lose your money one way or the other. So you're going to lose either way. At least let me know I'm losing. Just raise the taxes. Okay, let's keep going into this. Let's dive in deeper and deeper, and let's see if some of this eventually sticks. Let's talk about some crazy scenarios. The bank loans you money, $300. And when they loan you money, there is a finite or a definite supply of money based on the gold supply. Then all of a sudden, the government decides, you know what, we're also going to print money for silver. And so now we have money here, we have money here. And what we have done is printed money. We have increased the money supply, which means the actual value of that money has gone down. So that $300 is no longer worth the same thing. That kind of stinks for you, but not really, because it actually makes it easier for you to pay back your loan. And they loaned out $300, but in reality, now they get $300 bills back. But as we know, when we have inflation, sure, you have $300 bills. But we know that those 300 aren't really worth 300 anymore because we have created inflation. This is not good for the banks. It's actually kind of good today. I've talked about inflation's happening and it's kind of bad. But if you take out a loan for $100,000, a fixed mortgage rate, and then you pay that loan back in 30 years, sure, the interest is going to go up and that's going to hurt. But with inflation, you're not really even paying back because this $100,000 number never changes. It does not change as long as your interest rate is fixed. You actually pay back less if there is inflation. It actually hurts the banks, but don't worry about them. They've got a plan figured out. The banks and the rich and the wealthy and the elite, they don't want inflation. They do not want, this is during that time of the Panic of 1893 and during the Progressive Era and the populists wanting to push for coinage of silver. A lot of the elites don't want this. They don't want to increase the money supply because that's going to devalue the money supply. Because at this time, who has all the money? The banks and the wealthy people. They control it. If you print more, then the money that they control is going to go down. They don't want you to mess with their money. They want to stick to this gold supply because they control it all, and the value of it is very strong because the supply of it's really low. If you add more money to the supply, sure, it's going to help out this guy and the regular people that can buy more, but the bank, the money that it has in the vault today, it's all going to go down. The value is going to go down because you printed more money. Let's look at this some more. Again, gold is backed. The dollars are backed by gold. Again, if you need to fast forward because you've got this, more power to you. But I'm going to go on it over and over and over to make sure at some point it sticks for some people. So the bank loans money to you. You pay the money back. We Gucci. $300 is $300. We're fine. They loaned you $300. You paid back $3. We have a constant supply. The supply is connected to gold. $300 is $300. All right, let's mess around. They loan you $300. All right, so they have now loaned out $300. And then the government prints more money. Supply has gone up. The price of it's gone down. The purchasing power has gone down. $300 is actually $200 delivered. It's still the same $300 bills. It's not worth the same. When you pay them back, are they still getting $300 back? No. Sure, physically they are, but the money that they are getting back pays less. That's what happens when they loan out and the supply increases in the middle of the process. They loaned out $300, but technically they only got $200 back in return. That is not good for them. They're mad. You mad, bro? They're mad. And this guy's like, I like this system. Print more money. I can buy more things. It's easier for me to pay off my loans. Get to printing, government. As long as you don't print too much. Just easy on that gas pedal, but get back on that gas pedal. Now you're probably saying, who cares about the bank? Who cares about the rich? Who cares about the wealthy and the elite? Why are you sticking up for it, man? They're always sticking it to the man. Why do we care if we have inflation? All right, well, first of all, we need to make sure that we see things from both sides. The rich, wealthy guy, maybe he's not all that bad. I know we like to think that, oh man, he grew up swimming in a pile of gold. He's been doing that his whole life. The rich have always been the rich. They've never struggled. They've never been through anything. They're born rich. They stay rich. I'm not feeling sorry for them. I'm not going to be upset with them. All right, well, what about you think about it this way? Think about you. Now, I'm not saying that you're poor, but I'm definitely saying that you're not rich. If you were listening to this video and you're rich, then you've made some really poor life decisions. Again, I'm not saying that you're poor, but this is you. This is an exaggeration of you. How about that? But nonetheless, you're not rich right now. But wouldn't you like to do better? Wouldn't you like to be successful? Wouldn't you like to work your way up to middle class? And then eventually, wouldn't you like to be the boss? Wouldn't you want to be rich? Of course. Some people weren't always rich. Some people work their way up. That's how the system goes. So when you constantly beat up on the rich and the wealthy and the bankers and the business owners, remember that now I'm not going to say all of them or many of them. If you look at the data, and Howard Zinn says, now you got to be careful with some of the income data, but Howard Zinn in his book says that only 10% of the wealthy during this time, only 10% of the robber barons did the Horatio Alger rags to riches plan. He says that 90% of the rich were already rich. That's fine. But still, 10% of the people work their way up. And hopefully you are one of those 10%. And it might be even different today. You have to be careful with income stats. You may be rich one year and not rich the other. It's very difficult to really get a good picture because people are always moving in and out of income brackets. It's the way it is. We like to think of the rich as rich, but sometimes you have a really good year. Sometimes you don't have really good years. It's complicated. But the point I'm trying to get at is don't just hate this guy. Don't have this unfair bias towards him. If you think of him as somebody who once was poor that worked their way up, you might be a little bit more compassionate, have more sympathy, and then you can understand some of these issues better. Because in the end, we're still talking about inflation. This guy may have worked his way through studying, he worked hard, and he got himself to the top. So just humor me for a little bit and think of the wealthy. Think of the rappers. I know we look at the rappers and we look at athletes. A lot of the NBA stars were not born rich. They worked their way up. Now they make millions of dollars. A lot of the rappers and musicians in this country were not born rich. They have worked their way up, and it was through work, hard work, and studying. Oh, they didn't do any homework. Well, they did homework in other ways. LeBron James studied the game. Rappers studied the game, right? Now, I'm saying all this so that you can visualize, all right, maybe the wealthy aren't so bad. Why is he always frowning, Mr. Dietrich? Give him a smile. Let me put a smile on your face. All right, so the joke, and I've made him worse. They've worked. Imagine this is you. This is you right here, all right? This is you. You're this guy. Let me put some shades on you. You're so cool, you got to wear shades, red shades. All right, you've worked your whole life to become wealthy. All right, are you visualizing this? Are you in this moment? Are you with me? You've watched all the social studies games.us videos. You've passed all the tests. You went to college or you didn't go to college. You just invested in the right thing and you've made your way to the top. And now you got the bucks. Then all of a sudden one day, the government steps in and the government decides, you know what we going to do? We're going to print a bunch of money because we think it'll stimulate the economy and we're going to help out the middle class. We're going to help those low-income individuals because there's not enough money in circulation. If we print more money, people can spend more. It's going to create more jobs and it's going to help the economy. And hey, that sounds awesome. But you know what? The economy is fine. Help out the economy. But what about me? Because when the government prints this money, the supply of money goes up. And what happens then to the value or the price of that money? It goes down. And so the millions of dollars that you have in your bank account that you worked your whole life to accumulate, that you worked your whole life to save up, just like that, the snap of a finger, with the stroke of a pen, the government decides we need to print more money. And all of a sudden, your money just vanishes. Now, it doesn't literally vanish. Again, your $100 still says $100 on it. But we know that when you increase supply, the price goes down. And so when the government does this, when the government decides we're going to back money with gold and silver, supply goes up, the value of it goes down. That still says $100, but we know that it's not worth what it used to do. And typically we see that in the price of goods just cost more. You can no longer buy the same things that you used to be able to buy with your money. All this that you worked your whole life for is gone because the government made a decision to print more money. What do you think now? Do you feel a little bit more sympathy for the bankers? Do you kind of understand why they want to stick to a gold standard? At least with a gold standard, there are rules. And the government cannot just pick winners and losers and change overnight what has happened. Imagine working your whole life and then the government says, we're going to print more money. But I worked my whole life to earn that money. And now you're going to make that money worth less. That is not fair because you want to help someone else in the economy because you think somebody else is struggling. You are going to bail them out for whatever reason. Maybe they really are struggling, or maybe they made a lot of bad decisions. Maybe they shouldn't be bailed out. But either way, you are 100% harming me. This is the thing we run into in social studies all the time. There rarely is a right answer. And this is what we run into in economics. Economics is known as the dismal science. As Thomas Sowell said, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs, meaning if you do one thing, something else is going to happen. You can help one person, but you're going to hurt the other person. In your life, you can choose tonight to study, or you can go hang out with your friends, but you can't do them both. If you hang out with your friends, you're going to fail your test tomorrow. And if you study, you'll do well on the test, but you'll have no friends. There are no solutions in economics, only trade-offs. And the same thing in social studies. Should the government print more money? Well, it depends. You can print more money and help some people out, but you're going to hurt some people. And if you don't print money, you're going to help some people out, you're going to hurt other people. And that's, should we go to war or not go to war? Well, if we go to war, we can stop these guys from doing bad things. But our government is going to spend all of our money and people are going to die. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. 1/3 of your money gone. All right, let's do another example because I'm going to continue to hammer away at this until you understand what inflation is. It is definitely a big part of your life, not so much in the gold-silver debate, although that is a period of life that has, again, resurfaced and will continue throughout the life. But let's do it this way. We're going to reverse it. So they loan money, you pay it back, 300 is 300, no big deal. Well, what about this? I loan you $100, and then instead of inflation, we have deflation. We shrink the money supply. Supply has gone down, and the actual value of that money has gone up. So $300 is actually $600. That sounds awesome. You just made more. No, actually, we didn't make more money. There's less dollar bills now. Those less dollar bills, because it's rare, are actually worth more. The $100 is actually a $100 bill now buys $200. It doesn't say 200 on it, but what happens, we talk about inflation, the price of goods go up. Well, the price of goods will drop. If we deflate the economy, you can get a soda for 10 cents. You can get a candy bar for 25 cents. The price of goods will drop because money is rare. There's less money to go around. There isn't any money to buy anything. And so if I run a store and I want to sell because I know no one has any money, I've got to lower my prices. That's deflation. That sounds good, but the problem is a lot of people just don't have money at all. So not only do you have to pay that back, but you actually have to pay back $600. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm trying to give you the point that it's actually good for the banks. This bank specifically, when you have deflation. Now, if you have extreme deflation, what typically happens is this guy just simply doesn't have any money whatsoever. No money, because the money supply is gone. So he actually doesn't pay the bank back at all. And the bank doesn't get paid back. And if the bank doesn't get money, then the bank shuts down. So extreme deflation is bad. A normal rate of deflation is actually pretty good for the bank because their money becomes worth more. And like we said before, if you have a $100,000 mortgage, when there's inflation, we print a bunch of money. If there's a bunch of money, it's easy to pay that $100,000 back. But if there's deflation and there's no money, it becomes very difficult to pay back your $100,000 mortgage because basically your $100,000 mortgage now turned into a $300,000 mortgage because of deflation. You can't pay the money back. You can't pay back your loan, and so you lose your house. This is what happened during the Great Depression. There was deflation. They did not control the money supply correctly. Do not listen to the other social studies lessons where you say it was those greedy bankers or it was those greedy Wall Street types. It was all greedy people. And that's what caused the Great Depression. And the government saved us with the New Deal. Wrong. The government created the Great Depression by not printing money. These are facts. You can look at the evidence. It is there for whatever reason. No one else teaches it to you. They teach you lies to push a different narrative to make you love government. I love government. Wrong. Do not love government. Government created the problem through deflation. And when there's no money, you don't have money. And when you have money, you can't pay them back. If you can't pay them back, eventually they will go under as well. Hopefully some of this is sunk in and it's making some sense. I know, it's crazy. And so it's kind of good when the value is maintained at a decent level, when we don't devalue it too much. then the bank wins and you lose. But if they devalue it way too much, not only do you lose, but they will lose as well. So if we go back to this time period of the populace, around the turn of the century, we're talking about 1880 into 1900. The banks clearly wanted to stick to the system they had because they knew if we change over to this system, their money in their bank is going to go down. The money that they've earned to save, the money of their investors, we know that the value will drop. They don't want that. The people are desperate for cash. They're desperate. And so we need to base our monetary policy on not just gold, but also silver that will increase the money supply. We'll spend it, and that'll create jobs. And then that'll increase spending more. That's supposed to say spending, and it'll create even more jobs. Remember, you can't just hammer the gas, which this would be the gas, and you can't just hammer the brake, which this would be the brake. You've got to be in between. Today, it's much easier to be in between because our currency is a fiat currency. Let it become. Our money is worth money. Our money has value because the government says it is, period. And it's much easier now for the government to get on the gas and to get on the brake. And that would make you sound like, oh, well, everything's Gucci. Well, it's not. This actually may be better because at least when you have this, the government has very little power to mess with the money. Adding the silver situation again is giving government power to mess with the money. And that can be good to print more money, but it also can be bad because they can destroy all of your savings. Today we have a fiat currency, and so the government can pretty much do whichever it wants. It's a lot of power to manipulate currency. So the brake would be gold. Silver is the gas. Which do you think the government decided to do in 1880, 1900? Did the government decide, you know what? Populace, middle class, farmers, poor, unemployed, the protesters, Coxey's army protesting, we side with you? Or did the government say, we're going to stick with our pals, the elite? The elite. The elite. Do we help them out? Do we help out the rich? Do we help out the robber barons? Do we help out the railroads? Well, guess what? Most cases, the government is the rich. They are the railroads. They are the robber barons. So, of course, they're going to side with, let's stick to the gold policy. Ding, 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 ding. And as we close, here's our battle. William Jennings Bryan, WJB, ran for president 3 times. He loses every single time versus Mr. McKinley, who was a gold bug. They were in favor of the gold. They were in favor of silver. This was obviously the populace. This was their main thing. Well, technically, I think it's Democrats, but the populists were a part of this major push. And McKinley, like I mentioned, loses 3 times. Or not McKinley. Bryant loses 3 times. McKinley wins, but McKinley is quickly assassinated. I shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry. Assassinated by an anarchist. Anarchy! And, well, that's the end of his story. This is an interesting thing of note. You can see here's your electoral vote, and McKinley crushes William Jennings Bryan. But if you look closer, the popular vote is actually very close. People still complain today about the stupid electoral college. We should just go with the popular vote. And they're acting like this is a thing, a new thing. It's been this way since 1896. It's survived this long. People are waking up today like, man, electoral college is stupid. It's been like this forever. This is not the first time where the popular vote either favored the guy that lost or it was very close. It's about the electoral college. Now, I mean, I don't mind if you want to argue against it. That's fine. That's your thing. But let's not pretend that this is new. This is not new. This idea of the popular vote being close or actually going with the winner. 51%, 47%. Electoral college ain't even close. All right, I am not even going to sit here and try to talk about gold versus silver. We went on for probably an hour. It's taken you probably 3 days to watch this, and that's okay. That's okay. Hopefully you've got a little idea about what happens when the supply of money goes up and what happens when the supply of money goes down.